welcome everybody. Tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce Michelle Webster. She has been a friend to this agency for a long time. We go back quite a ways. She is at the Department of Mental Health, and she is in charge of the Certified Peer Specialist Recovery Program, CPRS. I'm not sure I got that in the right order, but she'll fix that for you. And she'll fill us in on what that is and what it takes to become a certified peer recovery specialist. And without further ado, I am going to hand it over to you.
To me?
Yep.
Okay. All righty. Well, good evening, everybody. It's really nice to meet you all. Am I introducing myself, or I'm just jumping right into it?
You can tell what brought you there, and anything. I always feel like that my guests are better at doing that than I am.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I was thinking about it, Robin, and I started with TDMHSAS is where I began in 2010, and then I became a trainer for the CPRS program. Went through the trainer in 2012, I think it was, or 2013. So it's been 10 years, going on 10 years that I've been doing this. So I'm very excited about it. So like I said, I started at TDMHSAS, doing the red line. And then when the facilitator position came up, my name got put in the hat. And so then I started doing that, started at TDMHSAS with that. And then the position came open here at the state, at the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. So I applied for it and I got that job. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've been here since 2016. So I get the honor of overseeing the peer recovery specialist program in the state of Tennessee. And we just have such a great program here. You know, we keep growing and growing and growing, and it's just amazing all the good stuff that we get to do with the peer movement here in the state of Tennessee. I will also self-disclose, I am a person with lived experience. I'm in long-term recovery, and I'm pretty excited about this. April 7th was my 23 years of being clean and sober. Wow. So yeah, so I just celebrated with my home group last night. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's amazing. Nice. 23 years is like, wow. So, and yeah, it's just really neat to be, you'll have to stop me whenever you need to. It's really neat to be able to share my journey of recovery, like even before I got into recovery, and then my journey of recovery, and being able to use that, like, and not have to be shameful or hiding or, you know what I mean, or embarrassed, you know, especially when I'm talking to my peers. So yeah, I'm just very honored to be able to do what I do.
That is amazing. And we go back about those 10 years. That's about when we met.
Yes.
I was fairly newly started with the NAMI Davidson. And I remember when you were at TDMHSAS, and for those that you may not know, TDMHSAS is the Tennessee Association of Alcohol and Drug Abuse Services, and statewide organization based in Nashville. And that's where Michelle and I met when she was working there. Can you tell how, because the peer, I know you took on that position, the position you're in right now, but can you tell a little bit, because it was still a fairly new program.
Yes.
When you took it on, can you tell a little bit about the program when you first joined it, and then and how it's grown and how it's matured?
Okay. Yes. So the peer program movement, I guess it is, started here in Tennessee, excuse me, in 2007. And back then it was peers with lived experience of mental health and substance abuse. I'm sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. I'm sorry about that. Oh my goodness. Of course it would happen.
I was thinking, I wish I could just hand you some iced tea.
Oh my goodness, that's just not good. I don't know why that happened all of a sudden. Oh my goodness. All right. So that it started, you had to have lived experience of mental health and mental health and substance abuse, but it wasn't people with only substance use disorder. And then in 2012, they got the state got a grant from SAMHSA to enhance the program and to include people with substance use only disorder. So in 2012, 2013 is when it changed, so that you had to have lived experience of mental health, co-occurring disorder, or just substance use disorder. And I had self-disclosed to my supervisor at TDMHSAS that I was a person in recovery for substance abuse. And so when the position came open for the facilitator to facilitate, help facilitate this training, she put my name in the hat for that one. And that's kind of how I got that. So when we very first started, like I said, it was, very heavy mental health and just a little bit of co-occurring. And so I was able to help, implement a lot of the substance use disorder part into the trainings and to kind of educate individuals on that part of what lived experience is and what recovery looks like. One of the things I really liked about this whole idea of CPRS is that the recovery journey is the same. Our paths are different, but the recovery journey is the same. And also too, just to back up a little bit, when they included people with substance use only disorder, that's when they changed it to certified peer recovery specialist. Before that, it was just certified peer specialist, I believe it was. And so they implemented the recovery. And so they changed it all, so I was able to, me and Cheryl McCormick, she was the other co-facilitator. Yes. And so we traveled the whole state of Tennessee for a year. We were in a different part of the state for 1 week per month for a whole year doing the training.
Wow. And Michelle, what does it take? First of all, why would we want to have a certified peer recovery specialist? What why would somebody even want the designation? What's it going to do for them?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So one of the things, early on in recovery, especially with substance use disorder and probably even the mental health recovery, oftentimes you had the doctors or counselors trying to help you and tell you what to do. And, and it's like, if you're the person with lived experience, sometimes trying to relate to that clinician or doctor, sometimes there's just a kind of a disconnect. So, and then, be able to have, be a person with lived experience, and then you could go to help somebody else who, on that same journey. It's like we can identify with each other more so. Not saying that clinicians and doctors definitely have a very vital part in recovery. We definitely need to all have the whole team. But having a CPRS on your staff or on your team, it's just that relatability for the peer. We're not clinical. We get to just walk alongside somebody on their path of recovery. We get to, we don't tell anybody what to do. We don't tell anybody how to do anything, the peers that we're working with. We don't tell them, that they're doing anything wrong or how to do it. We just kind of walk alongside them, and we get to share our experiences with them.
You're singing to the choir here.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So yeah, and it's just really neat to be able to have that. And there is can't think of the word I'm thinking about, proof, and that's not really the word I'm thinking of, that peers can get to other peers a lot deeper than clinicians.
Yeah, that definitely, and that's been research has definitely found that out, and just here at NAMI, I mean, we're a peer-to-peer organization. That's what we were founded on, and we call it the power of the peers.
Yes.
Because we know, and then you've got subgroups. I mean, so it can go down. So a subgroup might be LGBTQ, a subgroup might be spiritual, a subgroup just might be, guys getting together or women getting together, but having something, having a bond, and within that bond is acceptance. And that is a huge part of that. There's also, I think, accountability. Mm-hmm. How do you see accountability amongst your CPRSs? How do you look at that?
Yeah, sometimes that can be just a little tricky. Again, like I said, I'm from the substance abuse background, and I'm kind of what they would call maybe an old timer. So back, in the day when I first came in recovery, we had no problem calling each other out, right? And putting each other, in their place. And with the mental health peers, I see that as well, so the accountability is like, I've been where you've been. I know if you're blowing smoke. I know
That's right.
if you're trying to pull the wool over my eyes. And it's like, you don't have to do that with me. You can be real with me. I can be real with you. You can be real with me. And if you're struggling, that's okay. If you're just not doing well, that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not in recovery. That doesn't mean you're a failure. So that accountability is just, be real.
Yeah, thank you. That is so important.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but it's part of the path. It really is part of the path. I'm going to ask at this point, does anybody else have anything to contribute right now before we go even further? Does anybody else have any comments on what we were just talking about? And I'm going to let you guys know, and that's just fine. That's good. I had a training this morning, and one of the things I said was, I should let you know I'm really comfortable with uncomfortable silences. And as soon as I did that, I had a question. So Michelle, could you explain what the benefit is in becoming a peer, how it could benefit somebody, what the opportunities might be, and then what kind of training is involved?
Goodness, there's so much benefits. Some of the things that really kind of come to my head is, one of the benefits is often when we're in our illness, low self-esteem, no drive, often thinking that we are our disease, and like there's just like no hope, right? This is all there is. Yeah. So the benefits is being able to thrive and being able to use your diagnosis as your past, who you are, to help others, to not be shamed, that's one of the biggest benefits, you know what I mean? And I remember when I was applying for the facilitator position, and I was reading about, some of what CPRSs are and what they do. And one of it was the self-disclosure, and I was like kind of on the fence about that one, and it's just like, well, do I have to like walk in Walmart and say, hey, everybody, this is Michelle Webster, and I'm a person that with lived experience and, in recovery. I wasn't really sure where to go, how I was supposed to do that self-disclosure. And I don't know, it's just to be able to use, to be able to self-disclose and say, hey, I am a person in recovery, and helping to stop some of the stigma. When I first started this, there was a lot of stigma, and there still is. But the stigma was like very shameful and hidden. Or it would be, and I'm not good at remembering anybody's names, but let's just say, hey, Joe Smith, who just won an Academy Award, and he has bipolar disorder. And they would make it sound like anybody who was, famous, who had a mental health diagnosis or substance use disorder, that they were like something special because they're in recovery. It was just the way that they would put you, like, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say?
I know exactly what you're saying, and it's something that we talk about here a little bit, and especially the difference between substance abuse recovery and mental health, because it got to the point where people were copping to, and were thought of as heroic, for what they were doing in fighting their, and I'm so glad they were, their substance use disorders. But they wouldn't cop to sometimes what was underlying and what caused them to have that. And that was the mental health condition that was still looked upon with shame and stigma and fear. Yes. So I know that's what we often talk about that here at NAMI Davidson.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the swimmer. I can't think of his name.
Michael Phelps.
Thank you. And so he self-disclosed. So when he self-disclosed, and then he's helping, to get the word out. And so when you get a self-disclose yourself, it's not like, well, look at me, I'm something special because I am walking through this, or maybe I overcome that. So when he gets to speak for himself, and he's real,
Yeah.
You know, and he's not trying to be a superhero, whereas somebody else is going to talk about him. Well, look at him, like, you know, he's not supposed to be able to do these things because he has a mental health diagnosis, you know, and that's very offensive.
Yeah, no, it was, and it's really, it has come quite a ways. We still have a ways to go, but it definitely has come, you know, quite a ways. What is the training like? First of all, what are the requirements that you have to meet in order to become a CPRS, or is there a particular type, or, you know, what do we need to know as far as if someone is interested in doing this?
Good question. So, the first thing that needed is a minimum of a high school diploma or GED. That's the minimum requirement. And then a person who's in recovery, and we say a minimum of 24 consecutive months of recovery. That's where it can kind of get tricky a little bit sometimes, especially when you say recovery and people are asking, well, what does that look like? I'm going to read. It's over on this screen. I'm going to move it over here so I don't have to have my head turned to you. And this is what we have on our website about what recovery means. And I'm just going to go ahead and read this. It says, have demonstrated self-directed recovery for a minimum of 24 consecutive months, as described in the CPRS application, which you fill out. And it says recovery means different things to all of us. Although many people may think this has to mean that someone has to be in a 12-step program, or that someone has gone away to some kind of treatment or inpatient program for at least 30 days. However, this is not necessarily the case. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, SAMHSA, recognizes that there are many different pathways to recovery, and each individual determines his or her own way. SAMHSA defines recovery for mental health disorders and/or substance use disorder as a process of change through which the individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. Recovery is whatever steps we take personally that help us to heal from a mental health disorder or substance use disorder, or both. I know this is a long definition. And so what we're really telling you is, like, we can't tell you what your recovery is. You get to determine that. So we'll often have people say, well, I'm currently on some, medications. Does that mean I'm not in recovery? And it's like, no, that's part of your recovery. We have, in the substance use disorder, we have people who are on the MATs, medicated assisted treatment programs, and that's part of the recovery. So yes, you can be in the program, in the CPRS training. But so those are the two minimum requirements, is the 24 consecutive months. We say recovery. Some people, again, just, in your journey of wellness.
Yes. And on the mental health side, we talk about it as managed recovery.
Managed recovery. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, because Michelle, when you say 24 months, does someone who apply do they have to prove that, or is that honor system?
Honor system.
Okay.
Honor system. Yep. And that's something else too, that's kind of like keeping each other accountable for that. And so we'll have that conversation, if it's like, let's talk about this. Do you think that, you're still in recovery? Do you think that you have that 24 consecutive months? So once they've gone through the training, we don't ever keep up with that 24 months again. You don't sign off on that again. And then that's going to be up to you to decide, hey, maybe I did have a relapse, or maybe I did, whatever word you want to use, and I need to start this process over again. We don't drug test. We don't, do the hair follicles or anything like that. It's self.
And Michelle, can you talk a little bit of what the training consists of, please?
Definitely. So the trainings can be quite intensive. They're kind of like a retreat and a training all at once. It can, there's a lot to it. So we cover many different topics. It's a 40-hour training, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. We cover a variety of topics, such as what is a CPRS, what is a peer, what are your roles, We do like a whole day. We cover ethics and boundaries. We talk about self-disclosure. We do something that we added to the training after I had started was we talk about trauma-informed care. That's a really big part. And then also just right before COVID or right during COVID, we added the medicated assisted treatment section. So we have a section on that. We talk a little bit about supervision, self-care, quite a variety of topics. And so we do role plays. Most of the role plays, we have what we call case studies, and it'll just be people that, you know, just make believe people with make believe scenarios, and then you'll do like role plays. There's a couple of times that you kind of do your own, what's going on in your own life, and those kind of are role plays as well.
What are the goals after training for most people?
As far as
what they're going to be, how are they going to use this certification?
Okay. Well, after the training, there is a part 2. So after the training, you have up to 1 year to complete part 2. And that is provide 75 hours, a minimum of 75 hours of direct peer services. So you're going to be working with somebody else with lived experience. That can be volunteer or paid position. And then you have to have 3 references, and you fill out a part 2 application as well. So some of the things that you get to do is you get to go work at NAMI. That's one of the things you could probably do. Substance abuse facilities, peer support centers. We're in recovery courts. Is that what you're talking about? Like that type of thing?
It is, but I think, isn't there also a requirement that whatever you do, there has to be a master's level supervisor for you?
So if it's Medicaid reimbursable services, it has to be somebody who's licensed to be your supervisor. We actually added, and again, this was right around COVID time. I think that's how we all determined what's going on anymore, before COVID, after COVID, during COVID. We had started, this was right before COVID actually, and we added where if you're a CPRS and you've been a CPRS for a minimum of 6,000 hours, which is like 3 years, you can actually supervise other CPRSs.
Okay.
Then you have the track where you have to be, we call it board eligible. So at least a master's degree in a behavioral health field. And then, you know, that's like a LADAC, licensed social worker, that sort of thing. But board eligible, so you don't necessarily have to have your license.
And that's something that with NAMIs, we are peer-to-peer, so we don't always have those kind of certifications. So that for that initial, we've had people come to us asking if they could work with us to get that first year of certification, and often, unfortunately, the answer is no, because you know we are not at the level that you need for supervision. We are later when you're looking to get more hours in to keep your certification going. And isn't there a requirement so many hours a year in order to maintain your certification?
So and just
George,
really
did you have a question, or are you just stretching? George, was that a question or stretching?
Just popping and stretching.
Okay.
And I just want to clarify that the supervision is for part 2 and also renewal. So it's the same qualifications.
Oh, it is. Okay. Same
and
standard.
So, yeah. And like recovery courts, oftentimes recovery courts don't necessarily have a master level behavioral health person. So sometimes they'll contract with somebody else to do that supervision. And I say contract, I don't know exactly what that looks like. We are starting to get, because we are growing our program so much that it's easier to have like CPRSs supervising other CPRSs. And then for the renewal, that's what you have. So we had just in 2021 changed the renewal process to every 2 years. It used to be 1 year.
Oh, okay.
So this July will be our first 2 years coming up. So we got like a lot of renewals coming in July. So for every 2 years, you need a minimum of 50 hours of direct peer services under correct supervision, and 20 hours of continuing education hours with 2 hours of ethics. For continuing education, it cannot be anything clinical because we're not clinicians. So it's about peer-to-peer work and working with peers.
Does it have to be support, or can it be education? I'm just wondering if any of our our education sessions would qualify for that 2 hours?
Like this, what we're doing here?
Yeah,
Yes, this would count. Mhm, this would
okay.
count.
Because we will sometimes give a, if somebody asks for it, we'll give a participants certificate to show that they and what they were participating in. So we are happy to do that. You might want to pass the word on that we are more than willing to do that. And we have expanded, especially with Don here, we've expanded our education offerings. And we used to just do 4 a year with Vanderbilt, although we started out with Vanderbilt doing 8 a year. But I think we're back up to either 8 to 12 a year in what we offer, aren't we, Don?
I think we'll have 10 or 11 by the end of the fiscal year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is definitely a great opportunity, especially if they're able to, because you said this goes to YouTube, so they can watch it later.
They can. They actually can. What are we up to, 19, Don?
Yes.
Okay, there's 19 sessions on there in a variety. One of our recent sessions was CBT for psychosis. We've done, and we do a variety of things. Another thing was how to ride the bus. Boy, do we were looking at Drew for that one, because he was he was at master's level for that. And I'm not kidding, he knew his way around the system, and we counted on him for that. Yeah, and that was really important.
Yeah.
And so one of the other sessions we're going to have coming up is behavioral health and eating disorders in youth. So Rogers Behavioral Health will be putting that one on. So yeah.
So we would have to make sure, that these sessions are, about peers. That would be just something that we would have to, monitor.
So that's good to know.
Yeah, about peer
So
work
Don,
stuff.
And Don, what we could do is we could just put a little label on it. This one is, and maybe work with Michelle and go peer certified.
Well, again, I'm working with Tracy at Vanderbilt Behavioral Health to do a co-occurring substance use education session in June. So.
Oh, that would be neat.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah, so that's really helpful. So, anything else that you wanted to add? Because I'm gonna go out to George, Matt, Drew, and Don here in a second. Is there anything else just for right in the moment you wanted to add before I went out to the guys?
I just want to say too that we launched a young adult version peer support. In 2022, I believe is when it got and the young adults from 16 to 30 years old. So they have, for that age, we also have a young adult program. So.
Okay. Are you involved, or is it done separately, the family support specialist?
That's a little bit separate, but we kind of all work together. In fact, our conference this year is going to be a peer conference where it's going to be the family support, young adult, and CPRSs.
Oh, so that's this year, because you guys put on an annual conference, and I know our own Don Leocano often serves on that committee.
You're on this one, aren't you, Don? If you're not, I need to get you added.
Yes.
I thought you were. You were on that conference call. Yeah.
Yes, I was, but I was black. I was on the helpline a lot during the call, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. So we're excited about that. It's going to be, and we're going to have it in August this year.
August. Okay.
We have some money that we have to spend before September 30th.
Okay. And in person this year, right?
Hybrid. So it's going to be in person
Hybrid.
and online, I guess. And it's going to be in Murfreesboro. So.
Okay.
August 17th and 18th, Thursday and a Friday.
Very good. Very good. I've been to some of those conferences, and I think they're good conferences. I really do. I think there's a lot of information to be shared. So thank you for that, Michelle. At this time, I'd like to go out to Drew and ask Drew if there's anything you would like to share with your knowledge of peer programs and what you've done where you are and in the past.
Oh, sure. I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania right now. I was in Pittsburgh before that. One thing we have is a warm line where you have 3 20-minute calls with a peer on the warm line. And Nashville has something similar. You might have heard of Family and Children's Services, which they're kind of more than Family and Children's Services. You can just have 2 15-minute calls with them, only it's not necessarily a peer. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the volunteers. It's been very helpful. There's one group, Peer Support and Advocacy Network, where I have somebody who would come to my school and they would meet with me individually. And it was things like housing. I think it was like 7 things that they work on with each client. It's like housing, transportation, employment, wellness, finances. It was kind of a list of things like that. Very, very helpful. One thing I did go through the training to be a peer, it was like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it was. But from what I understand, there's a test we have to take. You might have mentioned that earlier, but I don't know. I kind of got confused on that. I never could figure out exactly what the test was or when it's offered or if it's specific to different states. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out.
Was that in Pennsylvania or was that in Tennessee?
It was in Pennsylvania.
In Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And there are peer programs around the country. But I will say this for Tennessee, they were one of the earlier ones.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
Yeah. When I would go to national conferences or national meetings for executive directors for NAMI, that was something that I definitely learned, was that Tennessee was at the forefront with this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's been extremely helpful. It's different than counseling in a lot of ways. I like what you said earlier, Michelle, about that idea of I don't know, you said it so well. It was kind of like confronting somebody when they could do something differently, but not being condescending, and how that can be really helpful with a peer. Like I talk about Brian Grant so much. He's a good friend of mine from NAMI. A lot of you know him. Where it's like when my mania came back in summer of 2020, he was like, well, a lot of your ideas could be a good idea for like 3 years from now or like 6 months from now. But for now, it's like, try to think of like a good goal for like each day. It seems like that's a common thing with a peer, that kind of pattern of communication where you don't like sugarcoat or like tell people what they want to hear, but it's not condescending because it's coming from a peer. Yeah.
Thank you, Drew. That was very, very helpful.
Yep.
Matthew, would you tell us a little bit about, yourself and what's going on there at the church, and because you've got a variety of programs over there that I think are good for people to know about.
Sure, happy to. Excuse me, I'm Matthew Phillips. I am the recovery coordinator for my church, Christ Church Nashville, and we are a certified recovery congregation. And so I've been in this position for a little over a year and trying to figure all this out. And we've started some programs for right now. We offer support groups for grief and divorce. And we started a mental health support group called Living Grace. And we just started Celebrate Recovery. In fact, this Friday is our first Friday being open to the public. So excited about that. And then, we offer workshops. We have a workshop coming up in May on anxiety. My mom's actually one of the speakers at this. She's a married family therapist, and then my therapist is the other speaker. So two people that know me the best are leading. There's these Barna statistics that have shown that one of the, maybe like the number one thing that people wish churches were addressing was mental wellness, specifically anxiety and stress. And so we're going to have a workshop on that. And of course, we've been partnering with NAMI and trying to use our facilities to host just to help our community. Anyway, we got big facilities, but they're empty most of the time, and I'd love to see them be used to help people. So
I love that.
Well, and we really appreciate that, Matthew. He has invited us in, and we have introduced you to others, but for classes, for support groups, for a reunion breakfast that we did. And then and I know you've even brought in the VA group that we were recommending to you. So, Michelle, if you need someplace for meeting or something, Matthew's got a variety of rooms, and it's a very open congregation, and the people that are there on site are very nice.
Yeah.
So we
It's an
really
honor.
appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Matt.
I am interested in since I first heard about the certified peer recovery specialist, interested in that myself. I'm not in my own recovery. I'm not at 2 years yet,
Okay.
but got about 10 more months to go.
Perfect.
Okay.
But I'm kind of interested, like, I'm still not quite sure that I fully understand. I definitely don't fully understand. I love that I love the idea of using my experience, what I've been through, to help other people. But I'm not sure what that looks like after I complete the program.
Mhm.
How do I do? Is that something I can use just individually one-on-one, or am I assigned people, or how, I don't know how that works.
Right. And that's really going to be dependent upon where you go to provide services at. One thing, you can't hang your shingle, so you always have to be under supervision. You have to be connected, like with your church, possibly, what somebody at your church could be your supervisor. And then, you could just start, start there, maybe, if that would be some. And I just want to say, I have heard about your Celebrate Recovery starting up there, so I'm pretty excited for that. I'm a ministry leader at my Celebrate Recovery here in Donaldson, so.
Oh, okay.
That's cool, Michelle. I didn't realize that.
I'm the ministry. We're both ministry leaders.
Yeah. So it's nice to be able to meet you. I've heard a lot about your Celebrate Recovery, and it's just neat to know that you all are more, so that's really cool. Do you work with Monty Burks when you all became, what did you call it?
When you became a certified congregation.
Yeah. I think I've met him. We work with Will Taylor.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
He's our, I guess, the Middle Tennessee based.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious to know. So Will Taylor can also help you navigate.
Okay.
And I don't want to I'm very good at dominating, so if you feel free to cut me off. But Will Taylor, he's also one of our facilitators for the CPRS program as well. And he could help you, maybe navigate that and see what that could look like within your church. So he's definitely, he's awesome. I really enjoy working with him. So, yeah.
I talked to Will a little bit. Yeah, he's another person that's really open. And Michelle, this is our night to have you. So,
Okay.
We want you to dominate. So that's just great.
Don't give me that much power, but yeah.
Yeah, take the power. George, would you like to share anything? You don't have to, but would you like to share anything in terms of what you're hearing tonight, or any questions you might have?
No, not really. I just was wondering why it took to become a peer support, coordinator, and then also trying to learn more since I'm an employee on the staff now. So then that way, if someone has a question that, if you're done or unavailable, then, I can be able to answer. So.
Well, you're getting it right from the source. So, and I think what we have seen actually, and Don, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I did have a question about the training, Michelle. Considering you've mentioned COVID, et cetera, is the training in person now, or are they doing it virtual, or are there both options?
There's both options. We're doing both in person and on Zoom. And hopefully our fiscal year will start July 1, and I'm hoping to add more in-person trainings. Right now we do like 2 Zoom a month and 1 in-person training a month. And I just wanted to say really, did you have another question?
Do you need, is the stipulation that you are a Tennessee resident?
No, but you have to provide services in Tennessee.
Okay, that's what I figured. Okay.
We've had people like from Texas who've taken our Zoom training, but they provide services here in Tennessee. That's a really great question. That's one thing a good thing about COVID when we opened it up to Zoom. I think that's one of the reasons it's exploding. We have almost 1,200 certified peer.
Wow, that's double from what I remember last.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I just wanted to say too, when Drew was sharing about the testing, like here in Tennessee, we test after each section. So we do like 2 or 3 tests per day. Our tests are multiple choice, anywhere from 3 to like 7 questions. Right now, that's what it looks like. It's really quite simple. We're not trying to test like at a college level or trying to, the tests are really quite simple. And again, we test after each section. If you're currently certified in another state and you want to become certified here in Tennessee, we do have a process for that. We call it state to state. So you would just fill out our state to state application, provide proof that you're certified in a different state. And then I would send you our test. Right now we're using SurveyMonkey for our test. And so I would send you like the SurveyMonkey links. You would take all of the tests. You have to have an overall 75% or higher to pass. And then you become certified here in Tennessee. So we're pretty excited about that process as well.
That's cool. Yeah, that reciprocal. Yeah, that's really, really nice to be able to do that. I know that some of the CPRSs that I have met, I know that some of them are placed over in provider facilities, providing peer support at the mental health cooperative. I'm not sure about Centerstone. I know Vanderbilt has used some folks. So I know that they have helped there. I think TDMHSAS is using folks. Trying to think of where else I may have seen them. Those are the primary places that I know. What other placements are you familiar? I think somebody is over at Tatis still, and like you said, the recovery courts.
Yep.
So,
for people who go through our trainings, and if you need your 75 hours, we often will send them to if you're in Nashville, send them to Tatis to answer the red line. We're trying to have that a lot more peer. It's not always just peers. We also have Vanderbilt. They have, I think it's called the Firefly program. And there's a couple other different programs that Vanderbilt has, Vanderbilt Hospital. So we have peers there as well. We have peers that work in the emergency room. So if somebody goes to the emergency room with an overdose, they'll send a peer, they call them navigators. And they'll send a navigator to the hospital and kind of sit with that peer, offer them some service, offer them some options if they want that. Like I said, recovery courts, goodness sakes. Lisa Reagan, my supervisor, has the dream to have CPRSs everywhere. So
yes, she does.
Yeah.
Now the Lifeline folks aren't considered part of your CPRS program, are they?
Yes, they are. Tennessee Lifeliners.
Oh, they are. Okay, I'm familiar with that group. That's a little more intensive.
Tennessee Lifeliners, they are people primarily with substance use disorders. That's kind of where it started. We started with the Lifeliners in 2013, and we only had maybe 5, and that's exploded now. We have them all over. Will Taylor was actually a Lifeliner. And Lifeliners, kind of like boots on the ground, is kind of how I describe it. So they'll go into a community and see what that community needs for recovery. And so they've expanded it now to include like the churches. That kind of sprang from that one because Monty Burks was a Lifeliner, and then he, started the faith.
I don't think I knew that Monty was a Lifeliner.
He sure was. He sure was.
Yeah, that makes a total sense. But yes, that's nice to know. So does anyone else have any other questions for Michelle, or are there any other things that you think we should know about Michelle?
I do want to talk about a little bit. University of Memphis was awarded a grant about peer support, and so they contacted us at the state, and so we've been working with them for probably about a year now. And we are starting, they're calling it cadre. So it's going to be like a portal where everything CPRS is going to be in this portal. Yeah, so we're getting ready to do like a soft launch within the next couple of weeks. And then eventually it's going to go live. So we're pretty excited about that partnership with University of Memphis.
Yeah, sounds interesting. There is a lot of good stuff that goes on in Memphis.
Oh yeah.
I know their African American spirituality based group over there is very strong in support. They do a lot over there because I belong to Suicide Prevention, the African American Faith Coalition here. And I know they are very robust over there in what they do and who they serve. So nice to hear that that's coming about. So, well, thank you so much.
I have
Michelle.
I have a quick question for
Okay.
Michelle to inform
Yeah.
the others. For someone who wants to come to the CPRS conference in August, what should they expect? What are you getting from coming to a conference at CPRS?
So this is going to be the first year it's going to be expanded. So it's going to be even more than probably what I can tell you right now, because all I can go is on what we had just as the CPRS. It's going to be 2 full days. So we're going to have some keynotes. We're going to have some special sessions. So the sessions generally are like on motivational interviewing. Of course, we'll have our ethics. Goodness sakes, that's a good question, Dawn. We're just barely in the beginning stages, but you'll be able to actually interact with other peers throughout the state, get to know some contacts. We'll have some sponsors, supporters, and I'm hoping that NAMI Tennessee will have a table, Dawn, so that you can kind of talk a little bit more about your what you all offer, just to let peers know about it, like in our own story. I just love that one. You know, but you'll have an opportunity to be able to meet other peers and just to kind of see what we do around the state. You know?
And Michelle, we will pass the word to NAMI Tennessee. You know, because I think I know they've had representatives in the past on the a convention planning group, and we in NAMI Davidson kind of hang in Middle Tennessee, and so Murfreesboro is just right for us. So we'll definitely, you know, we have an involvement there. We don't make our way out to Memphis or you know, Knoxville or Chattanooga very often, but you know, but we definitely are happy to provide here, and I'm happy to provide Don. So so it's very nice to have him. Well, guys, I think I want to thank everyone for coming tonight and for sharing with us, and especially want to thank Michelle Webster, who we have appreciated. I've enjoyed watching you grow in your journey, and all the people that you've helped, and watching the CPRS program grow. It has just flowered.
Yeah.
So you know, from one flower to a whole hedge of abundant, you know, floral offerings there.
Yeah.
So and so for those of you that came tonight, thank you so much. Don, would you like to please share what we have coming up this week?
Sure. Well, we've got tomorrow night our full Bridges support group, which is for people with lived experience from 6:30 to 8. That is virtual via Zoom. You can sign up on our website calendar or contact me at outreach@namidavidson.org. Speaking of Matthew and Christchurch, Nashville, we have our Fourth Sunday Caregivers group at the church on Sunday from 3 to 5, expanded from 3 to 4:30 because Robin and Marva found that an hour and a half was not enough to serve the needs right now. So we've expanded that from 3 to 5. Next week, we have another education session. I think Robin may have mentioned it. We have Rogers Behavioral Health coming out next Wednesday night to do a education session on what loved ones can do for youth who are challenged by eating disorders. And again, we are working on, I know that I finalized and put on our website a June education session on the VA. Kate Ambrosia from the VA is going to come out and talk about their services for both veterans and families. And I'm working with Vanderbilt Behavioral Health to have one in June on co-occurring substance use. So we're doing what we can. May's busy with the walk, but up until then, we're cranking along.
Thank you, Don. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your participation, and especially to Michelle, and if you know anybody that is interested in the CPRS, is there, can you give a web address that people might want to go to, Michelle?
Can I put it in the chat?
You could.
Sure.
It's tn.gov and then it's /, so it's just this big gigantic thing. I'll put it in the chat and then I can also say it at the same time.
Great. And what I'll do is I will, in the comment section of our YouTube channel, I'll have that link.
Okay, yeah, so it's tn.gov / behavioral, which is so hard to spell, -help / CPRS. So it's really long.
Yes, it is.
I always
That's
tell
okay.
people, do not Google, go to our website. Don't Google anything because you don't know what you're going to come up with. So yeah, so it's just a big long list. You can always call me or email me. Put that in the chat as well. 615-347-3262. And my email is my name, Webster, tn.gov. And I am really good about answering emails. It's just my name, Michelle.Webster@tn.gov. That's Michelle with 2 L's. Make sure I spelled it right. I am very, very good at answering emails. That would probably be the first way to contact me, but you can always also call and leave me a message if I don't answer, or you can even text because it's a cell phone. But yeah, please, we lost Drew. Please reach out to me anytime about anything.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very
All right,
much,
guys.
Michelle.
Thank you for having me. It's been nice to see you guys. And nice
Yeah,
to
it's
meet
good
you,
to see you
Matthew, and
again.
George and Drew.
Thank you for sharing with our members.
All
Definitely.
right. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, everybody.